The first time I walked toward Beema, I honestly prepared myself for the worst. Standing over 2,500 pounds, he looked intimidating enough to make anyone hesitate. But after I took a few more steps, I realized the thing he was carrying wasn't aggression. And what I discovered next broke my heart.
This face, you know I love it. Oh, you're gonna give me a kiss.
Oh, you're loving life, aren't you? Oh.
I still remember the day we got the call about a bull named Beema. People often expect rescue stories to begin with an emergency, but his wasn't like that. He wasn't dangerous, and he wasn't causing trouble. He was simply the one who always seemed to be left standing by himself. Even after all the years I've spent caring for rescued animals, those are the stories that stay with me the longest.
You were so handsome, so sweet.
Before Beema ever arrived here, his life had already been planned. He and his brother, Dharma, were supposed to work in an urban garden in Michigan, spending their days pulling equipment and doing the jobs people expected them to do. It wasn't a choice either of them had made. Then everything changed when the permit for that project wasn't approved. The plan came to an end almost overnight, and they suddenly needed somewhere safe to go. That's how they found their way to us. The first time I walked over to meet Beema, I stopped for a moment without even realizing it. He weighed well over 2,500 pounds, and there was no hiding how powerful he was. But the first thing I noticed wasn't his size, it was his face. His eyes looked calm, almost cautious, as though he was quietly trying to decide whether this new place would finally be different from the ones he had known before. For a short while, the brothers settled in together. Seeing them side by side made me think they would help each other through the adjustment. Then Dharma became sick with pneumonia. We did everything we could, but we lost him much sooner than any of us expected. One day they were together, and before we had time to process what was happening, Beema was standing there alone. After Dharma was gone, Beema didn't react in a way most people would notice. He didn't become loud, and he didn't search the pastures calling for his brother. Instead, everything about him grew quieter. I would often find him standing by himself, looking across the fields without moving very much. Sometimes I wondered if he was waiting. I never knew what was going through his mind, but it often felt as though a part of him still expected Dharma to come walking back. Not long after that, another problem demanded our attention. Both of Beema's horns had become badly infected, and our veterinarians decided they needed to remove them. During the days that followed, I spent time watching him recover. Little by little, I noticed the tension leaving his body. It wasn't only that he looked more comfortable, his whole posture softened. It made me realize he had probably been living with that pain for much longer than anyone knew. Even after his health improved, another challenge remained. Cows are naturally social animals. They form friendships, stay close to one another, and usually find their place within the herd. But for reasons none of us could ever fully explain, Beema never seemed to become part of that circle. No one bullied him. There were no fights. The others simply kept their distance, leaving him standing just outside the group as though he never quite belonged there.
Tell you a secret? Tell you.
Watching that day after day was harder than I expected. We couldn't force friendships, so we decided to stop trying to make Beema fit somewhere he clearly didn't feel comfortable. Instead, we introduced him to some of the other animals living at the sanctuary. There were goats, sheep, and a few gentle ponies nearby. We didn't have any expectations. We simply gave him the chance to meet them in his own time. Something small began to change. Without anyone asking anything from him, Beema slowly seemed to relax. For For the first time since arriving, he wasn't being measured against the rest of the herd. He was simply allowed to be himself, and that was when I finally started to see the quiet, gentle bull who had been there all along. As the weeks passed, I began to notice little things that most visitors would probably miss. People often assume an animal as large as Beema would move with confidence or demand attention, but he never did. Whenever he wanted to come closer, he walked slowly in a straight line until he was standing beside me. Then he would stop and wait. It always felt as though he was quietly asking whether it was all right to stay there for a while. The moment I reached out my hand, he would lean his weight against me as gently as he could. It never felt like he was trying to push. It felt more like someone resting beside a friend after carrying something heavy for a long time. If I scratched his belly, he would slowly lower himself onto the ground. Seeing such a large animal carefully fold himself down always made me smile. Somehow, he seemed to be trying to make himself smaller instead of reminding everyone how big he really was. Every so often, visitors became nervous when they saw Beema walking toward them. From a distance, someone his size could look intimidating. I would explain that he wasn't charging at anyone. He simply wanted to be close. More often than not, once people understood that, they relaxed, reached out a hand, and discovered the same gentle bull I had come to know. Even now, Beema rarely runs. In all the time I've known him, I've only seen him do it a handful of times. He almost never makes a sound either. That's why I still remember the first time I heard his voice. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was simply unexpected. Hearing him that day felt like listening to a small part of himself that had finally become comfortable enough to come out. Although the herd never truly accepted him, I noticed something that quietly became part of his days. A few of the cows would often walk over to the fence where he was standing. They didn't stay for very long. They simply stood beside him in silence before wandering away again. From a distance, it probably looked like nothing special. But after everything Beema had lived through, those quiet visits seemed to mean more than words ever could. Somehow, they were enough. When I think about Beema now, I don't remember his size first. I remember the way he chose to meet the world. He had lost his brother. He had lived with pain. He had spent so much time standing just outside the place where everyone else belonged. Even so, he never stopped walking toward people with the same calm trust. He never seemed to let disappointment change the way he treated those around him.
Beema. Beema.
If there's one thing I've learned through caring for animals like Beema, it's that every life moves at its own pace. If you're ever thinking about adopting or rescuing an animal, take time to learn about their needs, listen to experienced caregivers, and make sure you're ready for the commitment. And if stories like Beema's bring a little peace to your day, I'd be grateful if you'd like, share, and subscribe so we can keep sharing these quiet moments together.